welcome back to another episode of Cyclone InCYders. My name is Matt Van Winkle, joined again this week by Dean Burhau-Gall of the Iowa State Daily, Alex Halstead, also of the Iowa State Daily, and Cody Peterson to my far left over there. We're in our final segment. We're going to bring on Dylan Montz and Stephen Koenigsfeld from the Iowa State Daily to talk a little bit of Iowa State women's basketball. But guys, let's jump into some men's hoops. Big win for Iowa State on Saturday, an 87-53 big win over TCU. They were riding a two-game losing streak coming into that game, and it was a big turnaround for that team and a big challenge for them. I mean, TCU, obviously a down team in the Big 12. They're last in the Big 12, but they'd beaten Kansas. I mean, that's a legit team. Obviously, they struggled against Iowa State, but what are your kind of thoughts from that game? Obviously, a 30-plus point win for Iowa State. It's good to get them back on the right track.
I think it was really what they needed.
Yeah.
Was I asked Fred or I asked Corey after the game. I think that's what they needed was because, like you said, they lost those two games. They were on the road, and they kind of needed a little jump start before they go to Baylor here, and they really finished this key stretch in the Big 12. The game was over at halftime. They almost shot 50% from three. Had it not been actually for a Percy Gibson three-pointer at the very end of the game, they would have shot 50% from three.
Was it Kerwin Okoro hit it? Or was it
He
Percy?
hit it. Percy missed it to make it, drop it to
40-something
percent. But I just thought it was a game they needed,
Yep.
and I thought they played well. They took care of business.
Alex, Iowa State lost to Texas and Kansas State on the road back at Hilton. What was the difference maker at home against TCU on Saturday?
Well, I think it was Niang. He had 19 points in 23 minutes.
Career high for him.
Yeah, career high, and I think it was a really efficient game for him. He got 2 fouls early. He played a key part in both of the big runs they had. They ended the first half on a 12-0 run, and that was right after he checked in and hit a three right away. He scored 7 consecutive points in the second half. So he was the key to the game, and it showed how important he is. When he's on the bench, the offense is kind of a little different. When he's out there, he makes a big difference.
Cody, the team shot 29 threes, but they made 14 of them, just about 50%, 48% on the game. I mean, when they're hitting threes, there's really no stopping that team, especially against a team like TCU, who tries to slow you down. And when you shoot threes and you make them, it's a good sign for Iowa State.
Yeah, that's their game. That's their identity. That's what they have to do. Usually against good teams to stay in the game, and against poorer teams to kind of blow them out of the building like they did on Saturday.
4 players score in double figures for Iowa State in this game. I mean, it was a collective effort, Dean. There was a lot of people in there that were contributing.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Macbeth go in there, you saw Ellerman go in there. That's always a good thing, especially when you saw Kerwin go in. Kerwin Okoro has been really struggling the past couple of months. His brother died of colon cancer, and his dad died before that. And he comes in and hits a three. Hoiberg was after the game, Alex. You asked him about it, and he was, he thought that was a really big deal. I mean, but it was. It was a team effort, like you said. Niang led with 19 points. It was his career high, but I mean, you saw effort from everybody. Tyrus McGee hit threes. Babb continued his good play, and I just thought, it was a good team effort.
Let's talk about that a little bit, Alex. Chris Babb in that game, 11 points, 3 3-pointers. His production's really gone up lately. Yeah,
I was looking today. The first 6 Big 12 games, he went 9 of 33 from beyond the arc. In the last 6 Big 12 games, he's 19 of 33. Hoiberg was asked about it today at the news conference, and a big reason that Hoiberg thought was because of the return of Boo Boo Paolo. And the first 5 Big 12 games without Boo Boo, Babb was averaging something like 38 minutes a game. Since he's come back, he's averaging 34 minutes per game. It's only a 4-minute per game difference, but like Hoiberg said today, when he has time to rest his legs, he comes in, he's a little bit more productive. His numbers have really skyrocketed.
They're able to take him out of the game, like you said. I mean, that was the big difference. He played only 31 minutes against TCU, and certainly, I mean, that's different because he came out of the game at the end when they put in the reserves. But I mean, when you're able to sit down for a few minutes, whether it's 3 for Babb per half, just about, I mean, that's such a big difference because you're able to. He's not busy chasing around a Rodney McGruder or a LeBron Nash, and he actually has a chance to sit down when those guys go out.
Yeah, Chris Babb. I mean, Fred Hoiberg said it today. He was like one of the tops in the league in three-point shooting last year. I mean, it's no surprise that his scoring is there. I mean, he's a guy that can really shoot the ball, and he's a great defender. So, I mean, that just makes him a much more versatile player and a much more special player to have. I mean, they're going to really miss him next year, I think, and that's going to be a big loss for them. But obviously a big win, 87-53. Guys, did anything stand out to you in this game? I mean, like I said, 2 losses in a row on the road. This team is completely different at home, and it was good to see the good environment back at home and a good home win.
I think the rebounding kind of stood out for me because they won the rebounding effort 41-27, and like you said, this is a 1 win in the Big 12 team. Certainly it was Kansas, but Lord knows what happened to Kansas when they were on that losing streak there. But the rebounding, they out-rebounded them, and I just think it's the biggest thing that stood out to me because when they moved to Baylor here, that's really the big thing. That's kind of the key matchup.
Yeah, and I think another thing that stood out is TCU at one point in the first half made a little run to try to stick it in at halftime. Iowa State pulls away with a 12-0 run. That's a team Iowa State should beat handily at home, and they didn't. And I think that's a good sign for them going back on the road.
36 points for Iowa State in the first half, 51 in the second half. So, I mean, that just shows you. I think this team is a much better second half team as well. I think that they kind of get the message at halftime, it seems like, especially at home. We've seen so many times this season, Cody, that this team, they're not the same team in the first half. Their scoring numbers are down. Second half comes out, and they're a much better team.
Right. It takes them a little while to wake up. It's not that they play poorly in the first half, but the second half they're shooting really clicks. They're moving the ball, getting open shots, and hitting them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's just a credit to their coaching staff, to be honest.
Sure,
You think
that's
about Hoiberg, statistically based, is one of the best coaches in the country. Out of the timeout, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that's been talked about before, and I think they make adjustments at halftime. They figure out matchups. Against TCU, they also threw in some 2-3. I mean, they switch it up nearly every time down the court. They would go 2-3 to man, and that really gave TCU some problems.
Yeah, and it kept Niang out of foul trouble,
yeah,
too.
They protected him with that.
I think this game, to me, was just more or less a refreshing game for them. I mean, with 2 losses on the road, you get the guys, the subs, like you said, get to go in the game, give the starters a little bit of a rest. I mean, there's a big stretch coming up. We'll talk about that coming up, looking at the Big 12 standings. We can pull those up now, actually. Big 12, I mean, what it's shaping up right now. You look at the standings right now, 1 through 3, 3 teams tied at the top. 21-4, 9-3 is Kansas. Sitting at number 9 right now, number 13, Kansas State, 20-5, 9-3. Oklahoma State at 14th in the nation at 19-5. You look at Iowa State, they're right there too, guys. I mean, they've got some big games coming up at home too. Kansas coming up on Monday. You look at Oklahoma State coming in, some big chances for some big wins.
I honestly think they're going to have to finish 4th or better in the Big 12 to get in the tournament. I mean, I don't see 5 or 6 getting in. Certainly there's a lot of talent in the Big 12. You look at Oklahoma State, they're young, they're a talented team. You look at Kansas, they're very talented.
Right.
You look at Baylor. Baylor's even talented, and they're right there with Iowa State. I mean, they've got Pierre Jackson, who leads the league in scoring. He also takes the most shots. But it's just there's a lot of talent. I think they're going to have to finish higher than 4th.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it a bit, but I think one of the keys to finishing that higher is winning a road game, because they've only got 3 more at home. If they win those, that gets you, 10 wins. It might take them 11 wins in the conference to finish 4th.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think they're going to have to get to 11 or 12.
What do you guys think, though? I mean, what's it going to take? They obviously, got a big game come up Wednesday at Baylor. They need a big road win. I mean, they haven't had it. We should bring this up because, I mean, if you want to impress the tournament selection committee, you've got to get some road wins. I mean, not that they played bad on the road. They've played some good games. I mean, they've been in most of them. Most of these Big 12 road games they've been in. And, I mean, if they can pull this one out on Wednesday, I think you can put that in your pocket and say that's a pretty good road win.
Yeah, I mean, Baylor's certainly a talented team. They're not exactly top-heavy in the Big 12, but there's a lot of talent, like I said.
Yeah.
Their only win is at TCU on the road, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah, in conference. And so if you can get this win against Baylor, that's a mid-level team. That's a talented team that you can put on your resume.
Absolutely.
And I honestly think they need to find that guy at the end of the game. They haven't had it when they're on the road. I mean, they're waiting for a Clyburn or a Niang to really take the reins there at the end of the game, and they haven't had it, and other teams have. You look at Kansas, McLemore hit the one that sent it to overtime.
Yeah.
You look at Oklahoma State, Marcus Smart hits the game winner. Those are the difference, and that's what Iowa State's lacked.
Is that to you guys though necessarily important? I mean, do you need a solid leader? It seems like they have out there like a lot of leaders. I mean, they're 7th in the nation in scoring. I mean, the production's coming there. I mean, do you necessarily need to say, okay, you go out and get me 20, 30 points? I mean, are you guys okay with them having production from all over the place?
Well, to go back to the whole road thing, I think another big thing is closing it out.
Yeah.
Because
that was a lot.
They've gotten the points and they've been there at the end. I mean, we've talked about before. They had Kansas, they had Texas, and they had Oklahoma State. And Hoiberg said it today. One of the reasons they haven't closed out is because they get a score and then they give it right back up on the other end. I mean, you think about
transition defense.
Yeah, back to Texas last Wednesday. I think it was the second overtime. Clyburn gets a big dunk, and you think that might be a position where they can start to pull away.
Right.
Well, I think it was 10 seconds later, Texas goes down for a layup. They didn't even. I think they were so concerned not fouling that they gave up the layup.
Well, there's so many offenses in the Big 12 that are so quick to score. I mean, and that's when late in the game that can be. If you give up a few baskets. I mean, Chris Babb said today. I thought it was a really good point that. If you're in that position to lose the game on the road, down 2 or 3 points, I mean, you probably should lose that game just because if you're in that position, I mean, you're not in that position if you don't give up a couple easy transition buckets early on in the game, Cody.
And back to Dean's point about having a closer, they need someone that is going to get aggressive late in the shot clock, late in the game. And too many times this year they've had someone, usually it's Lucius dribbling down with about 10 to 8 seconds on the shot clock, then driving and not getting a great shot to finish them off, so maybe they're not in a one-possession game with the other team having the ball.
Who was that last year? I mean, what is it? Was it
Well,
Scott Christopherson? Royce?
Think about it. The Kansas State game at home.
The
Kansas State game at home, they say, Royce, go win us the game.
Or you look at Scotty against Oklahoma State at home.
Exactly.
I mean, there's these guys. I mean, that's what I was worried about with this team coming into this year. Who is going to be that leader? I mean, Will Clyburn and Corey Lucius, those guys have experience and talent, but I mean, are they a leader? Are they going to lead your team to the NCAA tournament?
Well, I think it's different between being a leader because you have Corey Lucius, who has, without a doubt, emerged as kind of the floor general out there. I mean, we saw at Kansas State on the highlights here. I mean, the highlights obviously don't show it, but when he came out of the game, that was a huge difference when Boo Boo Paolo was running the point. But the difference is they don't have a guy at the very end where they can say, all right, you are better than everybody on the court, which was Royce last year. Go get us a bucket. Clyburn certainly leads the team in scoring with about 15 a game, but he's not quick enough or explosive enough to just drive past this man or score or get his own shot. I honestly don't know of a guy on this team besides maybe Corey or Tyrus that can really create their own shot. And those guys, let alone creating their own shot, is probably a fadeaway jumper or a contested layup. They don't have somebody that can just get to the rim and be strong enough to score like a Royce last year.
I think another big way that Royce hurt, not having someone like Royce hurt someone, is when they get to 2 or 3 minutes left in the game with with either a lead, tie, or whatever. Last year they could give it to Royce, let him waste the 35 seconds, and then have him drive or try to create something. This year, they waste those 30 seconds and they're stuck beyond the arc and they have nothing to do, and that's why they let some of these teams back in and not closing games out.
Right. I mean, we talk about this a lot, guys. I mean, what Iowa State did against TCU was they got out and they scored early. I mean, we said they had that little drought at the end, but on the road especially, if this team's not scoring and shooting well, they really struggle. I mean, as we said all year, this team lives and dies by the three-pointer and from the shots. I mean, they're not going to get that post-production from, like a Jeff Withy would bring you from Kansas. I mean, they need this production early.
I agree with you there with the live and die by the three, but we saw it against Baylor. They went 4 of 24 from three, shot 25 of 30 from the free throw line, and they still won the game. It never felt like that Baylor game was out of reach. But my point is defensively. On the road, they're averaging giving up the other team 77 points, where at home they're only allowing 64 points. So I think the big thing, I talked to Corey Lucius after the Kansas State game, and it just comes down to getting stops. And the other teams that have won those road games, like I've said, like a Marcus Smart who can get that shot, make that tough contested layup to win the game, or a Ben McLemore who was just out of his mind at Fog Allen who can make that shot.
Yeah, and Clyburn said today they've got to find a way, once you get to that under 5-minute mark, to start getting those stops, whereas right now they're still allowing the runs. And, I mean, back to the live and die by the three, they shot really well beyond the arc against Oklahoma State and Kansas, and they just couldn't close those ones out. So the three helped them get to the end, but they've got to find a way to take it from there to finish it off.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, guys. We'll be back to preview Wednesday's game against Baylor coming up in this next segment. Stay tuned. You're watching Cyclone InCYders. Alex Halstead and Cody Peterson here. Guys, Iowa State's got a big chance to pick up a road win, a much-needed road win. This team right now 1-5 in the conference on the road. So obviously struggling with a big chance to go down to Waco, pick up a big win against the Baylor Bears, who Iowa State picked up a win against them at home, 79-71, February 2nd. Pretty good win for Iowa State at home. I mean, that's a good Baylor team. Definitely 7-5 in the conference, very similar to Iowa State. I think their records very similar, 2-5, Baylor 16-9 overall. So you look at those two, quite comparable for these two teams. I mean, Iowa State's a better shooting team. Baylor's a pretty good rebounding team. I mean, what kind of challenges are Baylor going to present to Iowa State, and how do you think they're going to overcome them on Wednesday, Dean?
I think that you look at Baylor and you look at Pierre Jackson is the first thing that comes to mind. The guy he leads the Big 12 with over 18 points a game. At Iowa State, or at Hilton, a couple weeks ago, he had 23 points. The guy takes a lot of shots, but he's so explosive, and he hits shots that nobody else really can. I think he's got a floor, in a sense, that not a lot of people can get to, especially as a 5'8" point guard. So that's really the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, you touched on it at the beginning. They're very similar. They're 1-2 in the conference in scoring. They're both top 3 in rebounds per game and assists per game, and they both like to play fast, and they both score as much as they can. Obviously, a big key I think is Baylor's holding teams to I think 29% from beyond the arc, which is where they hurt Iowa State at Hilton, 4 of 24. The big key is, can Iowa State overcome it like they did at Hilton? At Hilton, they were able to get to the lane.
They went 25 to 30
at the free throw line.
They shot free throws very well again. Will Clyburn had like 11.
If Baylor does hold them to that 30% and they have to find something else, the key I think will be, can they find something like they did at Hilton?
Let's go to this quickly. Fred Hoiberg, Chris Babb, and Will Clyburn actually earlier today talked about playing Baylor and what the challenges are going to be on Wednesday.
I think a big piece of their success in defending the three-point line is their bigs. You look at the way we shot against Kentucky last year. I think we made 3 of 23 or 24, and a lot of it had to do with their length. I mean, you got those guys coming out. You got to shoot a little bit higher, gets you out of a rhythm. We had some good looks the first game. We just didn't knock them down. We started out over 13 that game, and finally George hit one in the second half. And then, Will got it going a little bit. Will, I think, was 3 of 6 that game. But, they got very quick guards. Walton's an excellent defender. Pierre Jackson really chases off. And, I'd say Heslop does a good job staying attached. And, when you got those shot blockers sitting behind you, you can get up and pressure the ball a little bit better. And you don't have to leave shooters as much as some other teams. So just, I'd say overall length and the fact that they have shot blockers behind them is a reason that they have good success guarding the line.
I think we have to. I think we have to win these games that we got coming up. And I think we got pretty good opportunities too with the way that we've been playing offensively and, the way we've been defending. I think we have a pretty good chance to win these last couple of games to build up our resume.
Yeah, I think every game is going to be extremely important from here on out. We're going to have to find a way to close some of these games out. I've liked our mentality on the road. We've been right there. You lose one in double overtime, you lose one in overtime. Both, we had leads going into the final seconds. And then Okie State was a game that, we had a very good chance of winning that one as well. So, we got to have that same approach, go down there and battle. I've loved the way our kids have fought on the road. You just got to find a way to close them out.
My biggest belief is we're just not getting stops at the end of the game when we need to. A lot of games I won at the 5-minute mark at the end of the game. And I feel like on the 5-minute mark that we're not getting the stops that we need to win the game. And I think going on, that's just what we need to do. At the end of the game, we got to get down and get stops.
It's been a couple of games where teams have hit last-second shots, whether it's a bank shot or, a deep shot that, and they haven't hit a shot all game. I don't know what you want to call it, but, we just can't let games come down to those last-second shots. If we get stops, so we need to, with 3 or 4 minutes left, then, things like that won't happen.
I think the biggest thing, we've been giving up too many easy baskets late in games. We get a 5-point lead with a minute and a half left, and the team comes down and gets an uncontested layup. You can't give teams easy baskets like that. It keeps them around. Then you're not in those situations at the end where you got to make a decision if you foul or not. And, it's happened, I think, 3 times against Texas. Once we switched and, we lunged at the guy, he got around us. When you don't want to give up a 3 and Kabongo gets a layup. Another time we got mixed up in transition and Holmes gets a dunk, and we give up 3 of those as opposed to taking time off the clock and shortening the game, and getting a chance to win those.
So there's Fred Hoiberg, guys, and some of the players talking about what the challenges for this Baylor team is going to be. I mean, guys, we've seen this team go on the road to some pretty dull environments, TCU and Tech. I mean, TCU, they played okay. They didn't play great. I think that game was only in the 50s, but they lost at Tech. Very dull environments. I think they're going to be expecting the same, too. I mean, I don't expect Waco to be, like a Hilton Coliseum. So, I mean, why does this team play? Why are they so bad on the road? I mean, they go into these dull environments. Do they kind of just get lulled to sleep, is it? I mean.
Well, I think they really thrive off the environment.
Yeah,
I mean,
it seems like it, at least.
You think about Hilton. I mean, they're undefeated.
Kansas.
They're undefeated at home right now. And they go to Kansas,
K-State.
play really well on the road, go to K-State, the Octagon of Doom, and play really well. and they lose both those games, but I think they really thrive off the environment. They're an emotional team. I mean, now last year's team was pretty emotional, but I think this year they really depend on it. You think about Chris Babb, you think about George Niang, especially. That's what comes to mind.
We talked about this earlier, how comparable that these two teams are. I mean, you look at what Will Clyburn did against Baylor at home, 28 points and 10 rebounds. Pierre Jackson scores 18 points, 9 or 10 assists. I mean, so it goes back and forth. I mean, these two teams are pretty comparable. You look at what Isaiah Austin. I mean, that's a guy. I was looking at his numbers. They're pretty down lately. I mean, this guy, 7'1" freshman. Mm-hmm. This guy's talented, and I mean, if he goes off, they've really got to contain him. And I think the only guy you can put up with him is George Niang. And I mean, Niang did a really good job against a guy like Jeff Withey, 7-footer, spreading him out just a little bit. Is that going to be the same kind of thing you think? Is Isaiah Austin that dangerous?
Well, yeah, I mean, right now he's second in the Big 12 in offensive rebounds to only Melvin Edgem. Yeah. He's first in defensive rebounds with Edgem behind him there. I think he's averaging right around 10 rebounds a game. And when he gets the offensive board, you talk about he's 7'1". That's a guy that can just lay it right back in. And when he's averaging between 2 and 3 offensive rebounds a game, and he's averaging, I think, 14 points a game, about half his points are probably coming from those offensive rebounds where he's just putting it back in.
Yeah.
So they got to limit the second chance points from him.
Cody, we talked about this earlier in the last segment about transition defense, getting back, because these teams can score so quickly. I mean, this Baylor team, probably one of the fastest in the country, if not, the Big 12, if not the country. So, I mean, it's going to be important for this team. Once they score back at the baskets, they got to get back on defense because Baylor can score quickly.
Yeah, Pierre Jackson's one of the quickest guys in the nation with the ball. All you have to do is watch him for one possession, and you can see that.
He'll be in the league, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's definitely going to have a shot with his quickness and his scoring ability. But, one part of that is making sure that you do get good shots, because if they get a rebound and are able to outlet, they're going to be down the court in no time. Yeah. And when they got guys that can run the fast break. Even the 7-foot guys, 6'10" guys, those guys can all run.
That's a good point about being smart, taking smart shots, especially on the road when it's hard to come by. Points are hard to come by in the Big 12. I mean, you got to take smart shots, be smart with the basketball, limit turnovers, and I think the most important thing in this game is going to be rebounding, because Baylor is so tall and lengthy. If they can keep Baylor off the glass, keep them from getting second chance points, they got a pretty good shot, I think.
It's a perfect segue, Matt. That's my key to the game, I think, is rebounding. You think last game, you have Baylor's Isaiah Austin. He's, I think, the number 3 recruit in the country, 7'1". Yeah. He's about 130 pounds. He's a beanpole. But Corey Jefferson's 6'10". And both of them, they average upwards of 10 rebounds a game. You look at Corey Jefferson, he's number 4 in the country, or in the Big 12 in rebounding. Isaiah Austin's 2. And then and conversely, Edgem's 1, and you got Clyburn, who's 5. So I think that's kind of the big deal. At Hilton, the combination of both of them at 18 each. So I think that's kind of the big difference if you think about it.
Well, you go to their bench too, and Rico Gathers is averaging 6 points and 6 rebounds. I mean, they've got guys up and down the lineup that can rebound the basketball. And as we've talked about all year, this Iowa State team, that was the big concern we thought with them coming into this year was going to be rebounding, but it hasn't been a problem for them. I mean, do you think they're going to be able to match up again? They beat them in rebounding back at home. Is it different on the road? What do you think, Dylan? Or Alex, sorry.
Well, I think they can do the same thing on the road. It'd be interesting to see how that translates. But one reason they've been able to rebound so well is because of Edgem. I mean, he's 7 inches smaller than Austin, but he's right up there.
6'5",
He's right up there, I think, second in the league behind Austin in rebounding, rebounds per game. So it'll be interesting to see how they match up, because obviously, every team makes adjustments. It'll be interesting what type of adjustments Baylor makes and how Iowa State can respond to those.
And I think it's going to be a team effort defensively. Baylor's pretty good one-on-one, so you have to keep them in front of you, make sure you box out, make sure everyone gets after the boards. Otherwise, they can wreak havoc on the offensive glass.
I mean, do you guys see this game? I mean, since we met, I think the Iowa State went down to Austin and played Texas and lost another close one there. I mean, you look at they're not banking a 3, but they hit pretty much a desperation 3 to send the game to overtime. They end up losing a double overtime. But why can't Iowa State finish out games? I mean, it seems like so many times they go on the road, can't finish it out.
Yeah, I like, we went over this in our last segment. They don't have a guy, they don't have a closer. They don't have a guy they can hand the ball to who can just go get him a score. Yeah, so I mean, they need to find that.
I see this game being very similar to a Texas environment. I mean, Texas was not, wasn't a big crowd, but I mean, it's a similar environment in the sense of both in Texas, very similar schools in the sense in that way, but 2 good basketball teams. I mean, I think that this is going to be down to the wire again.
Well, you think about it, both teams are going to have a sense of urgency. They're both 7-5 in the Big 12.
Coming off loss, or Baylor coming off a loss.
And
Iowa
20-point loss to Kansas State.
Loss. Yeah.
And both teams are going to realize, this is a key game if they want to get in the tournament, because you think about it, like you said, they're very similar. Well, their resumes are incredibly similar because Baylor's bad on the road too. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, they've got to win this game because if they want to get to double-digit wins in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Alex, you brought up a good point earlier about Iowa State. They really haven't had a good road win. I mean, TCU and Kansas City, you had this down in our notes here. Those aren't really great wins, I wouldn't say. They're not resume boosters at all.
No.
Well, not only that, but I don't think they probably even felt that great after either of those games. The one in Kansas City, they were down at halftime to that team. And TCU, I think
62-55.
They ended up winning by decent margin, but a lot of that came on free throws when TCU fouled them at the end.
Yeah.
Then obviously they've had all those close losses. So even the road games that they have won, I don't think they've felt that great about. And going back to closing it out, Babb said today that he thinks maybe the team's a little unlucky.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Texas, not a great three-point shooting team. All of a sudden they start hitting them to go to overtime.
Yeah.
But he said you can't use the unlucky thing as an excuse, because you got to make it to a point where you're up by enough where luck doesn't matter or factor into that.
I think that was the big point during interviews today, is that they got to play a complete game from start to finish. If they're giving up these easy buckets, midway through the game, that comes back to bite you. And I think we've seen that a lot. Kansas, you look at that. That's a perfect example. Kansas, Texas, you look at Oklahoma State as well. There's a chance there they could win 3 games on the road. It could be a completely different story with this team. They have had so many, I think you said it, unlucky, bounces not go their way.
Yeah, Oklahoma State, right before halftime, hits that half-court shot, things like that.
Stuff like that, yeah.
But at the same time, that Oklahoma State game, they're up 74-70 with like a minute left.
Mm-hmm.
I think Edgem turned it over. So just little things that happen at the end of those games where, sure, there were some unlucky things that happened at points. Texas hitting threes when they hadn't made any all game. But if you capitalize on a few other things, the luck doesn't factor into that.
And they've really let this become kind of their identity, unfortunately. Now that's their big, big weakness in their resume is the no road wins, and that's something that can get in their head every time they go on the road now.
Yep.
They can always have that in the back of their head.
Yeah. So they got 3 road games coming up: Baylor, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. 3, I think, pretty winnable games, guys, and I think they need to at least win 2 of those. Let's move on now, talking about what's it going to take for them to make the tournament. They've got these 3 road games left, but they've also got some big chances at home. They got to get those home wins. Got to secure the home court. Haven't lost in the Big 12 at home. Was it 21 straight now they've won at home?
Straight.
21 straight wins at home. That in itself is very impressive. That'll probably impress the selection committee. But how many games do they have to win left? They've got 7 games left in conference, 3 on the road, 4 at home. What's the number?
I think to feel safe, they probably got maybe get to 11, which is 4 more.
Okay.
One big reason I think the Baylor game on Wednesday is so big is the next time we will meet here is next Tuesday. Between now and then, they have Baylor, Texas Tech, and Kansas, so 3 games. If they beat Baylor, I think they should absolutely beat Texas Tech at home. That's not a game that you could obviously afford to lose and make the tournament. If they beat Baylor and Texas Tech, you have a chance, or they have a chance to go into Monday with Kansas A being a signature win and B being your 10th win.
Right.
10 has kind of always been a big number. I think this year might be maybe 11 because the Big 12 is so spread out.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you get to that 10th win with Kansas, then you still have, I think, 3 more opportunities to find 1 more there.
I think they have a couple of different types of chances again. Like we said, they've got to win probably all 3 of these games, because you think about it, they look at road wins. And if you win 2 of these games, say you lose at Oklahoma, and your signature win is a mid-level Big 12 team at Baylor, that's not really your resume builder. But at the same time, if they do lose one of these games on the road, say they lose at Oklahoma, like I said, they have to beat Oklahoma State at home. They have to beat Kansas at home. But say they win all 3, I think they still have an opportunity to, say, lose a close one to Kansas, who's coming back after they lost that stretch of games. So if they lose that game at Kansas, but they win these road games, they still have a chance.
Well, let's not overestimate the strength of the bubble. There's 68 teams now that get into the tournament. You don't have to be a great team to get into the field of 68. I think if they really want to make it a lock by the end of the regular season, they've got to pick up at least 1 on the road, if not 2, and get one of the games between Oklahoma State and Kansas at home.
Yeah.
They do have the Big 12 tournament where they can pick up maybe another decent win and get another opportunity for another resume win.
Right.
So the opportunities are there, and I think right now, they're in. Right now they're in, but that can go either way depending on what happens these next 2 weeks.
I think there's a lot of different routes for them to get there.
Right.
I think as far as what I mean, it sounded like what you mean is to be for sure, before the Big 12 tournament, to know you're for sure in. Yeah. That's maybe what they got to do. Obviously, several things could happen. They could make a run in the Big 12 tournament, get a couple wins, or even one win and get in. But I think for sure you want to.
I think 11 wins before the tournament would be pretty safe.
Yeah.
10, you're getting iffy.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, so they got 4 home games left, 3 on the road. I think they probably secure that home court. I think they win all 4. I think they're going to be
huge because that means 2 top 15 wins.
Right, and exactly. And I think that they've got a great shot to beat Kansas. I mean, they are hungry for that win. That's been circled on the schedule ever since last year. I mean, that's a huge game. I think they probably pull out 2 on the road. I think they're going to have to win 2 on the road. If they lose 1 at home, definitely got to win 2 on the road. If they win all 4 at home, definitely just need to win 1. I think. That put them at 22 wins. So
2 on the road is very plausible, but if they lose Wednesday, then obviously it gets a little bit tougher. Having to win at Oklahoma and having to win at West Virginia.
All right, let's just get a quick down the table, quick predictions for Wednesday's game. Who wins down in Waco, guys?
I've got Iowa State winning their second Big 12 game on the road. I picked them to lose at Kansas State. I think they're going to get it. I believe they will be a high-scoring affair. I think Iowa State's going to shoot well. I think they'll rebound. I think Baylor will also shoot well. I think they're going to win by fewer than 5 points. I have them at like 73-70. I think a big factor, like you brought up earlier, Alex, if they don't make 3-pointers, they've got to find a different way. At Hilton, they made 25 of 30 free throws.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a difference.
Yeah, the free throws were big.
I get that on
game.
the road.
Alex, what do you think?
Well, I went back and forth. I'm going to go with the win as well.
Okay.
I was going to go with the loss until they found a way to close one out because you never know. But I think they do finally get a road win in a signature, or not necessarily signature, but like Dean said, I think a key to it is they're averaging 9.5 3-pointers per game. I think the top in the nation.
Right.
If Baylor does hold to that 30%, they've got to find a way, because if they don't find another way to score, whether it's free throws or getting inside, if they don't find that way, they're not going to win. But I think it's going to be very high scoring. I mean, you're looking at the 2 highest scoring.
Yeah, I think they got to do the same thing. Got to be aggressive. You got to find ways to score. Cody, who you got?
Well, I predicted wins the last 2 times they've been on the road. I'm not going to let them get me again. I'm going to go with Baylor on this one.
Okay.
Until they can prove that they can win on the road, I have to go with Baylor.
I'm going to go with Iowa State on this one, and I think I picked Iowa State against Kansas State, and I was wrong with that one, but I'm going to stick with Iowa State. I think they're shooting the ball as best as they have all season. I think that there's a big confidence booster against TCU. I mean, shots were falling for them. They got some production inside. I think George Niang is going to be the player to watch this game. I think he's going to be huge. He's gotten a little bit of foul trouble lately, so he hasn't played a lot of minutes, but I think if he and Clyburn can combine and have a good game, Clyburn really dominated against them at home, 28 points to 10 rebounds. I think if he can have a good game, they're going to be pretty successful.
They didn't have anybody that could guard Clyburn. And then let's also not underestimate the fact that Chris Babb's play has been so good of late that, that's been a big part.
Yeah. And somebody said today they've been spending about 10 minutes per game in practice on late game situations.
Yeah.
I think at some point you'd think have to pay off.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Dean's got Iowa State. Alex says Iowa State. I have Iowa State. Cody is picking Baylor. We'll see. We've got a lot of time between now and our next show, as you said, Tuesday. 3 games. Iowa State on the road on Wednesday. Got a big home game against Texas Tech on Saturday, and big Monday, Kansas. We're going to have complete coverage of that game on Tuesday's Cyclone InCYders. But coming up next, actually, Dylan Montz and Stephen Koenigsfeld from the Iowa State Daily will join us to talk to me about some Iowa State women's basketball. And as we go to break, Alex and Dylan actually had a pretty cool story on former Iowa State cornerback Leonard Johnson, who was in the NFL playing for the Buccaneers, coming back to Iowa State to finish his degree. Let's check that out as we go to break.
Leonard Johnson has returned to Ames, but this time it has nothing to do with football. After spending his rookie season last year in the NFL with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Johnson has returned to finish what he started.
So I was 9 hours short from finishing up with my degree. And the second reason, I'll be the first one in my family with a degree from a major university.
It was well known from the very first day that I arrived that his getting a college degree was very important to him. Leonard just qualified for school and got himself in, and now here it is, 4.5 years later, he's going to have his college degree. So very, very exciting for not only him but for his family.
After going undrafted in the 2012 NFL Draft, the Clearwater, Florida native chose to sign with the Buccaneers. It took Johnson only half of his rookie season to crack the lineup.
Before you knew it, I think it was week 3 or 4, I got the opportunity to play, and I played really well. And from that point on, I tried my best not to give the job up.
Earning his first start in Week 8 against Minnesota, Johnson picked up his first of 3 interceptions. Perhaps his biggest interception came at home against the San Diego Chargers.
And once I caught the ball, I kind of stopped for a second and was like, did he just throw me the ball? Because he literally threw it right to me. And once I came to 2, I just took off running. I think an offensive lineman almost tackled me on one play. It was crazy. I got a whole bunch of crap for it all week, but I'm running down the sideline, I'm looking in the stands, I'm dancing, I'm just having fun, just living my dream, and finally getting in the end zone, and it's just like, I think I just scored a touchdown.
Johnson spent his rookie season living at home with his family, sleeping in a twin bed and doing chores along the way. Despite his success in the NFL, Johnson's former teammates at Iowa State have treated him the same as he helped set an example with his return to school.
You can be a great athlete and achieve at the highest level on the highest stage, and at the same time be devoted and dedicated to your education, and even beyond your college days, come back and achieve that degree of being an Iowa State University graduate?
It just means a lot, knowing that none of my family members have degrees, and for them to say that, a representative in the family, a family member, has a degree and has brought a lot of success off the field as well.
After Johnson earns his degree from Iowa State in May, he will return to the Buccaneers to continue his career with a contract signed through 2014.
I still got a long way to come, and I kind of want to keep my mind like that, because once I started thinking I'm in the NFL, then I started getting ahead of myself, and I don't want that to happen.
For Iowa State News, with Dylan Montz, I'm Alex Halstead.
Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. Matt Van Winkle here, and joined once again by our friends from the Iowa State Daily, Stephen Koenigsfeld and Dylan Montz, here to talk a little bit of Iowa State women's basketball now, changing things up a little bit. Guys, a little bit of a disappointing weekend for Iowa State. After a nice road win, Oklahoma, ranked opponent, always nice to get those in your pocket. Come back to at home and lose to West Virginia, 68-66. Hallie Christopherson, though, passed the 1,000 career point mark. Third Cyclone to do it this year, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Chelsea and Anna Prinz, the other two, to do that. But the outcome wasn't really what they expected, what they hoped for at least. What was kind of the problem against West Virginia? What happened in that game?
They got off to a great start, 10-0 run, got out really, really fast out of the gates, and then West Virginia showed a press defense, and that was what it confused them. Yeah. Some of the players, it looked really sloppy, and the wheels fell off the train from there.
Like no scoring in the first half. 27-22 was the Iowa State led at halftime. And then both teams kind of picked it up in the second half. I mean, both teams obviously got the message at halftime. West Virginia, though, goes and scores out 46 points, Dylan. I mean, what was the difference between them in the first half and second half?
Well, Iowa State just kind of had some defensive lapses. Yeah. They lane wide open, just kind of letting West Virginia go through. And then they went on kind of a three-point tear. They had they went 6 for 15 from the three-point arc, and just kind of gave Iowa State fits all day.
Yeah, only their second conference home loss though. 5-2 at home, 18-6 overall. Still holding that ranked position. I mean, it might be close though coming in here. They've got a week off though, guys. I mean, does that hurt them at all? I mean, is that nice to kind of regroup? I mean, do you want to be playing consistently?
Yeah, I don't know if it necessarily hurts them, but this is a team that definitely likes to keep playing consistently. Yeah. And Fenley said that over and over, time and time again, that they love to just play good basketball.
I think you're right, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, two players that didn't really, they did a little bit in this game, but they obviously, when they're out of the game, they're a different team. And that definitely showed up late in the stretch. Chelsea Poppins, Anna Prinz, both fouled out. What did we see that game? Was it Texas Tech where they both fouled out as well? Yeah. And they were able to pull that one off. But this team's completely different without their two of their leading scorers in there.
Right. Prinz only had 5 points and 2 rebounds in her 20 minutes, and
Poppins only at 10. So
right. And with West Virginia being such a physical team, it just going in, driving in, getting them in foul trouble early, it just really kind of hurt them down the stretch.
Combined, if you're only getting 15 points from two of your top scorers, that's obviously a sign that you need production somewhere else. Weren't really getting it. Bryn Williamson's continuing to struggle a bit. Had a pretty good game the other night. Nikki Moody scores 14 points in this one. if they don't hit those 3 3-pointers that she made, they lose by more than. I mean, this game's not even close because she came in there in the second half and hit some big threes to take the lead. I mean, that game was back and forth. It seemed like throughout the whole game. She came in there and hit some big threes to keep them in.
And she talked about that after the game, how it was a really big momentum builder, and she hit the 3 and got kind of Hilton on their feet, hit another 3 on another transition, and then again. But the one thing that really killed them was West Virginia had an answer for everything.
Yeah, it really seemed like they did, absolutely. I mean, even down to the controversial call, I mean, could have gone either way. I looked at the replay, and it seemed like the West Virginia defender kind of slid in there late. Nikki Moody gets called for the offensive foul, takes that possession away from Iowa State. They got another chance to score, and I mean, take the lead or take the win. But they, Kid Bleskowski chucks one down the court. Hallie Christopherson can't hold on to the ball. But as you said, it seems like everything just seemed to go West Virginia's way late in the game.
Yeah, and that's what Hallie said after the game too. I think she said they just kind of almost collapsed in a way and just couldn't get anything going. And Dunning for West Virginia went down and was called for an offensive foul too, kind of upset the West Virginia coach. He talked about it very briefly after the game. But, Iowa State just couldn't close that one out. Very rare at home, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. So I said 18-6 overall for this team, 9-5 in the conference, which is pretty good. I mean, they've still got a lot of room to play, a lot of games to play. And we said this whole week off, travel to Kansas State on Saturday. And this is a chance to pick up another good win on the road. Coming off 2 conference road wins, OU and Texas. Is this team playing with confidence on the road right now? It's kind of a difference between the Iowa State men and women right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, the men playing really well at home, not well on the road. The women seem to be doing just the opposite.
Yeah, and you talk about those 5 conference losses. 2 of them are against the best team in the country, Baylor. And so when you look at the home record, they've only lost 2, 1 to Baylor, 1 to West Virginia.
Yeah.
And they definitely are playing really confident. You talked about the Oklahoma and the Texas wins on that 4-game win streak, and then just an overtime loss at Kansas. And then they had, just at the end of February, that win at West Virginia. So this team really does play well on the road.
Let me ask you guys, do you think that only playing 7 players, I mean, sometimes they go to 8, but do you think that having only 2 players off the bench is starting to wear on this team? I mean, obviously they're playing a lot of minutes, and you guys will probably touch on this in your story too, but I mean, with Kid Bleskowski and Fallon Ellis, the only 2 coming off the bench, I mean, if Fallon Ellis isn't getting you many points, I mean, you got to rely on your scorers to get you points, and they haven't been really doing that lately.
Yeah, and when the bigs get in foul trouble, it really gets to be a good point. But Bill Fenley says all the time, you play with 5 and not 7 on the court at the time. So, yeah, he just, I don't know. I think that maybe if they had 1 or 2 others, obviously it would help a lot, with it, especially in foul trouble situations.
I mean, you want your best players scoring, but when you got Bryn Williamson that's going in 1 for 8 on the day, and really struggling, you put Kid Bleskowski in. I mean, she'll get you a couple threes, but she's not the person that's going to pull your team along. That's when you look for a Chelsea Poppins, Anna Prinz. I mean, Hallie Christopherson really is pulling the load right now. 27 points for her. She's having an unbelievable season, but it's going to take more than her.
I think that's one thing that you kind of touched on is Nicole Bleskowski she didn't hit any threes, and Anna Prinz only hit 1. Usually a team that shoots better from behind the arc, but just didn't really have it going in that game.
It's rare that an opposing team will outshoot from beyond 3.
Yes.
I mean, West Virginia had 6 3-pointers in that game. Iowa State only has 5. That's pretty rare for that team who really lives from the 3. And, they've got some solid post players, but like I said, Bryn Williamson goes out there and is not contributing from 3-point range. You got to find it from somewhere else. And, I mean, Kid Bleskowski's been, don't get me wrong, she's been a great benefit to this team just as a freshman, too. I think she's got a lot to learn and a lot to improve, but they're going to need more than her.
Absolutely.
And let's move on, guys. I mean, Sunday, was that a wake-up call? Because it seemed to me like this team had been playing well. I mean, maybe they were getting a little too far ahead of themselves. Okay, things are going pretty well. Come back home. Is this a wake-up call? Do you guys think so?
I don't know. I think it's not necessarily a wake-up call. It's they had a long week, and I understand going to Texas, going to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So I think just maybe the weariness and only playing 7 players kind of caught up with them a little bit, and a more physical game.
Right.
I definitely agree with Dylan. I don't know if it was necessarily a wake-up call, but this team is playing in one of the best conferences in women's basketball. You play with some of the top teams in the country, including the #1 team in the country.
Yeah.
And you get teams like that. You play home and away.
Yeah.
And it's just to go on a 3 or 4 game win streak in the Big 12 is such an accomplishment.
I mean, what do you expect from this game on Saturday? Obviously, it's a lot of time from now between then. But obviously Iowa State, I mean, they've been okay on the road. I mean, Kansas State, looking at their record, 13-12 overall. So, I mean, they've had better seasons, but at home, conference games are just 3-4. So this was a very winnable game for Iowa State to pick up.
Yeah, I think so. Kansas State is very, very undersized. I don't think they have a starter over 5'11". So this is again a game where
Wow.
Yeah, that's it's amazing how they've been able to go through this whole season with that kind of lineup. But I think this is a game obviously where Iowa State can exploit its height matchup, and maybe if it keeps Poppins and Prinz out of foul trouble, they can kind of feed them the ball. And Christopherson.
Yeah. Let me see, what do you expect in this game?
This could go one of two ways for me, I think. You have a long week to prepare. You can really hit the scouting report really hard and really match up evenly. Practice some of those. They talked about practicing some of those down by 2, tied with 3-4 seconds left. You can really practice some of those because you're probably going to get a game like that down in Manhattan. So if you can prepare well, I think they come out with a win. If not, definitely another close Big 12 slugfest.
What do you think's been the difference in Nikki Moody? I mean, she's really seemed her scoring numbers are up lately. She's just an assist machine. It seems like. I only had 4 against West Virginia, but I mean, she's been doing it all lately. I mean, and like I said, they need that production from somewhere, and do you think it's just her realizing, okay, I need to shoot a little bit more? What do you think, guys?
The 4 assists, she got 2 fouls early in the first half, so she came out, and Fallon Ellis and Buskowski kind of picked up the slack towards the end of that first half. So assist numbers weren't as high as they usually are, but she's I think still 3rd in the nation leading assist. I personally think it's just she's become such a smarter player, not only over the course of the season, but also her time at Iowa State. Not much else from me, at least.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, she really is, I think, starting to understand her role too. And when the Cyclones went to Texas, Hallie Christopherson only ended up with 5 points, and I think Moody ended up with 15. So there's kind of a team chemistry going on there, where on a night where their best scorer up to this point is having kind of a bad night, other players will step up and kind of help her out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think when everybody seems to be contributing, doing what they need to do, Nikki Moody's assisting, Hallie Christopherson's getting in there, getting rebounds, staying out of foul trouble for Anna Prinz and Chelsea Poppins, things seem to be shaping up really well for this team. I mean, Iowa State and Kansas State met earlier this season, 87-71 win for Iowa State. The number for Kansas State stand out to me, 71 points. That's quite a bit for them. I mean, for a team that's really been struggling on the road, that's a pretty surprising number to me, guys. I mean, what do you expect in this game? Who's going to come out on top?
Well, first, I'll pick Iowa State by more than 10, I would say. But I think Brittany Chambers for K-State is really going to be a big key. She had 34 points in the last game and 12 rebounds. So I think maybe containing her, guarding the perimeter, because K-State's it's a three-point shooting team with their being undersized. I think if Iowa State can do that, they'll come out on top.
What does Iowa State need to do, Steven, and who comes out on top?
I think Iowa State will come out on top. They've been playing really well on the road. Oklahoma and Texas, both good road wins. I think they're going to really have to match up well. Dylan touched on it perfectly. Just those down-low matchups and keeping Prinz and Poppins out of foul trouble. Finley's talked about it the entire conference season, how they get into early foul trouble, and then they start having to go to that bench, which only goes 2 deep. So I think that's important that they stay out of foul trouble.
I definitely think this team can make a bit of a run come Big 12 tournament time and into the NCAA tournament. I definitely think they're going to be in. I think that there's no doubt about it. They'll be in the tournament. But, I mean, I think they can go either way. I mean, this is a team that could make a run, or they could just flop. I mean, we've seen so many different versions of this Iowa State team. They can go out and shoot lights out, beat Oklahoma on the road, a ranked team, or, they can come home and lay an egg like they did against West Virginia. So you can kind of go either way. I mean, to me, this team's playing well. I see them winning this game. I think they'll probably win by double digits. But who knows? I mean, anything can happen with this team. It really seems like, guys.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. We want to remind you, though, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at ISUT for all your Iowa State sports coverage. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next Tuesday, actually, not Monday, for another episode of Cyclone InCYders. 8 o'clock, we're going to recap that Iowa State men's basketball game versus Kansas, that big Monday showdown at Hilton Coliseum. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next Tuesday.